What's going on, family? Welcome back to Isrock's Movie Reviews. And we're going to continue on with this Halloween theme. And it's coming to me. It's coming to me! Nah, I'm messing. I don't really celebrate Halloween too much, but I like when it comes because I love to scare the shit out of my children, man. You don't understand, man. This is a good time, and we're going to continue with another epic movie, another icon in the slasher genre, and we're going to continue with another classic. And this is going to be A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984, man, the original. Whatever you do not fall asleep, right? We heard this throughout the whole movie, right? And God, was that the truth? You know, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Jesus Christ, started a whole craze around the nation, right? One of the scariest movies of all time, and one of the scariest, especially back in the 80s. I remember watching this when I was young, or a young kid, maybe 2-3 years old. Just sneaked in and decided to watch this. This shit gave me a heart attack at 3 years old. It also introduced us to one of the most scariest villains of all time, Freddy Krueger. When I was younger, God, this guy was scary. I couldn't even sleep when the first time I saw this movie. He was one of the ultimate original boogeyman that you know who he is just by his name, Freddy. Shit would drive you crazy, especially at night or in the dark. You know, Wes Craven brought us to one of the most terrifying, not only characters, but one of the most terrifying ideas put into a film. What would happen if your nightmares were, in fact, real, right? He brought up these questions, and he brought up this plot that drove us insane for years into adulthood, right? And that if you died in your dream, then you died in real life. And, you know, it's very comical now as an adult, right? But when you're younger, man, that shit drives you crazy. Like, wow, you just want to sleep with one eye. And I was fortunate to grow up with 3 other brothers in the room. So it was 4 of us. I know it wasn't really going anywhere, you know what I mean? So, but Jesus Christ, he brought us A Nightmare on Elm Street, and, you know, our imaginations ran wild. You know, this was another epic movie because they ran it on a very low budget. And it became bigger than that budget. It became one of the biggest movies in the genre of horror in the world. You know, the whole concept of this film and what makes it so brilliant is not to mention on how cool Johnny Depp's first role was. And, you know, everybody knew who he was going to be, right, with 21 Jump Street. And he, you know, eventually blossomed into what he has, a legendary actor. But there was a lot of firsts with this as well. You know, who knew that kid was going to be so huge one day, right? And Johnny Depp. And that entire cast made it into one of the most scariest movies that would always bring you a few nightmares on his own, including Freddy Krueger himself. When they casted Robert Englund, he wasn't originally wanted. You know, the studio definitely didn't want him. They wanted somebody else. And he was well into his 40s when he got this role. And what I really liked about the movie, and before I continue, let me give you a little summary if you're not familiar with A Nightmare on Elm Street, right? You have a girl named Tina who has been having tons of nightmares about the scary figure that happens to be Freddy, a man who's severely burned and has knives for fingers. And the reason he was burned is because, you know, he was a pedophile, basically, you know, and the parents in the town burned his ass. You know, so she's scared of this man, and she asks her friends, Nancy, and Nancy's boyfriend, Glenn, and her boyfriend, Rod, to stay over one night. But Tina is brutally killed in the middle of the night right in front of her boyfriend, who witnesses this. And as he's being massacred right in front of him, he doesn't see the person doing it, which is interesting. That's the first time we get to see something like that on screen. And, you know, he ends up leaving. He's obviously the suspect of the murder. And but when he's murdered in jail, Nancy knows there's something definitely wrong, and she starts having the same nightmares as Tina did. And sooner than later, you know, obviously she tells people, no one believes her, typical, right? Until her mom reveals a deep secret rooted in her by a mysterious figure, and then mentions his name, Freddy Krueger, and basically tells her that he was a sick think a child molester and killer who the neighbors burned alive to keep him away, and now he's after their children, the next generation, and he's not going to take it easy on them, especially Nancy, who's the main, she's the final girl in this movie, in this franchise, and she, you know, played by Heather LangenKamp, said her name, I don't want to butcher her name, but she is awesome, she's fierce. I feel like throughout the series, I feel like we don't get enough of her, but that's for another video. But she's one of the most fiercest final girls in horror history. When you think about Final Girl, you definitely think about her. She's a badass. She actually fights back. She's not, you know, in the bushes or in the shadows trying to hide. No, her and her chemistry with Freddy Krueger, Robert Englund's character, top notch. And that's one of the reasons you want to stay in this movie. You stay very invested. You know, I think this movie was the best horror flick I've seen to that point. You know, Wes Craven, I think, did a phenomenal job creating this character out of basically nothing. You know what I mean? All he did was put in a sweater, gave him a glove, a burnt face, and boom, you know, you have, you know, a really good movie. And, you know, for it to come out in 1984 was something special also. You know, there was a craze going around in the 80s, you know. You had the poster guys. You had Dawn of the Dead back in 78 with Halloween. The Exorcist was out. Texas Chainsaw came out back in the original 74. And those movies had a lot of gritty scenes. Even though Texas Chainsaw Massacre, if you really look at the original, didn't have no blood. This one did. You know, you got, you know, Freddy massacring these people, man. But what I liked about it is this film is very original. You know, it's realistic, except for, you know, the dream sequences, but overall it's terrifying. You know, that's why it's considered a horror classic, slasher flick that is actually happening in dreams in real time by a sociopath child killer, you know, with the sharp glove. And it's crazy how that just comes and gets you. And then you have this main protagonist in Nancy Thompson, who's not only a female, she's a teenager. She's very smart, and, you know, her friends are dying one by one, and, you know, she's trying and telling people out there, and they don't care. You know, that's why she has this awesome uniqueness about her that, you know, she goes down as a legendary heroine. And you see these booby traps that she puts for Freddy, which is, I think, was awesome. You know, this is one of those movies that, you know, it had a lot of success. Back in the 80s, it made, I think, about close to $27 million, which is unbelievable. So, definitely, this movie was definitely one of those films, classic horror film that's, to me, is perfect for a sleepover, with your friends to watch in the dark, scare the shit out of each other, especially wait till the first person falls asleep. I think that'll be that would be funny, right? It's such a great film, man. It sparked quite a few sequels that honestly aren't up to par with the original film. The second film is right there almost with the first film, but it does have its issues as well. Part 3, I think, is the best, you know, movie in this franchise, and we'll get to that eventually. But, you know, definitely sparked a lot of sequels, and it became a new icon for slasher films. Up to that point, we had Jason, we had Freddy for a while, and then, boom, we get the introduction to Freddy Krueger, who was just so cool and extremely scary, just for the fact that he was just so confident in knowing that he'll kill you. You know, he was very scary, and then they made him a little bit too comedic in the future films. But he's ruthless in this film. He's scary, very clever, and he's coming to kill. He's coming to kill you. And Nightmare on Elm Street, I think, was one of those movies that's highly recommended. It always will be. You know, Wes Craven is an original icon, genius, and he spawned a very new type of terror, especially back in the 80s. And the last thing is, there's this music that plays during the movie. He has his own song. 1, 2, 3, I'm coming up. And that shit was terrifying, especially as a kid. and you got these little girls singing these songs, and it's like, whoa, in the dreams. But definitely a horror flick, man. This movie gets a 10 out of 10 for me. Even rewatching it, it does scare you in many ways. So definitely go check out that film, man. And let me know what you think. It's definitely one of my top films, horror films of all time. So hopefully it's yours too. If you like this review, hit that like button, hit that notification button. I look forward to seeing you on the next one as we continue this Halloween theme. Peace.